should you use Duolingo? And just as important, will the app actually get you fluent? I get asked these questions all the time, and it makes sense why, given the app's popularity. Even SNL has done a skit about it.
You go to school, that sucks.
Do you have no idea how to talk to children? It's never too late to learn with new Duolingo for talking to children, the first foreign language app for grown people who need to learn how to talk to kids.
Some people love Duolingo and protect their streaks with an almost religious-like zeal. Other people, if you go look on YouTube or Reddit, love to hate on Duolingo. So what's my take as a linguist and an experienced language learner? In this video, I share why Duolingo alone will not get you fluent in a language, but why I think you should use it anyway. Duolingo does get a lot of things right. I share my favorite features later in the video, but it faces the same basic limitations and shortcomings that all language learning apps do. Namely, what is easiest and most profitable to design is rarely what is best for the actual learner. Here are some of the things I consider to be Duolingo's biggest shortcomings. Number one, Duolingo does not offer much authentic input or active output. Humans acquire languages best when they get tons of meaningful, comprehensible, context-rich input, and lots of practice communicating with other humans in real life, real-time situations. This is how we all learned our first language, and it's the same basic template we should use to learn a second or third or fourth foreign language. While Duolingo does provide some input, like listening and reading exercises, and an itty-bitty bit of output, like typing and pronunciation exercises, this is a far cry from authentic input, such as listening to a podcast, watching a movie, etc., or true output, like communicating with a tutor on italki. These two factors, authentic input and true active output, are the keys to getting fluent in a language, not tapping away in a screen on your smartphone. Best of all, such real input and output makes language learning far more fun, effective, and efficient. I call this approach to language learning the Anywhere Immersion Method, or AIM for short. And it's something that anyone can do anywhere to learn any language on any budget. For more on this approach, download my free Quick Start Guide over at anywhereimmersion.com. Number two, Duolingo relies on too much translation and indirect learning. Most exercises in Duolingo feel like language learning, but are in fact examples of indirect learning. They primarily lead to the acquisition of passive knowledge, not active skill, which is what we really want. Three key examples of such indirect learning you'll find in Duolingo include translation exercises, matching exercises, and fill in the blank exercises. Here's the problem with translation. Most language learners and app makers assume that we learn a language by systematically translating each word and phrase one by one until we have matching sets of equivalent terms in our native language and our target language. This seems logical enough on the surface, but there's one major problem with this approach. This is not how our brains actually learn to understand and produce a language. As I've already said, we do that through exposure and practice. While occasional translations can be helpful to create context and increase comprehension, true acquisition proceeds best when we create an instantaneous connection between sound and meaning. For example, when you hear the sound dingo, you want to instantly picture a juicy piece of fruit, not think to yourself, ah, yes, dingo, dingo. Ah, that's the Japanese word for apple. No, sound to meaning. Translations add an extra unneeded step in between the two, and they slow down cognition and gum up the works. Many language learners, probably fearful of the uncertainty and ambiguity that language learning inevitably entails, get addicted to translations early on in their journey and find it very, very difficult to break this habit later on. Unfortunately, apps like Duolingo function to reinforce and support this bad habit. Incidentally, translation is very much in the DNA of Duolingo. The original version of this service actually sought to teach language learners and help translate sentences on the internet at the same time. Of course, crowdsourcing translations is not really the purpose of the app anymore, but it's still in how the app works. And here's the problem with matching and fill in the blank exercises. Such activities are found in pretty much all language learning apps, but they're pretty much useless when it comes to learning to speak a language. Think about it. When you're face to face with another human and trying to communicate, you use your mouth and your ears. You're not using your finger to drag words around a screen. Again, we need to focus on direct practice. If you want to get good at speaking, you need to practice speaking directly. And unfortunately, Duolingo does not help you do that very much. Another way to think of this is you want to spend most of your time in the language, not learning about the language. You want to choose real work, not busy work. As James Clear puts it in the introduction to Scott Young's excellent book, Ultra Learning, directness is the practice of learning by directly doing the thing you want to learn. Basically, it's improvement through active practice rather than through passive learning. The phrases learning something new and practicing something new may seem similar, but these two methods can produce profoundly different results. Passive learning creates knowledge. Active practice creates skill. So those are some of the ways in which Duolingo falls short. But again, these are many of the ways that almost all language learning apps miss the mark when it comes to learning to communicate in a foreign language. So the answer to the second question is pretty clear by now. No, Duolingo alone will not get you fluent in a language. But I don't think that makes the answer to the first question obvious. Should you use it? Despite its limitations, Duolingo does offer plenty of positives too, and it does some things better than any other apps that I've tried. So let's now look at ways in which Duolingo can be part of a balanced linguistic breakfast. Just make sure that it's not all you eat. Here are 3 things that Duolingo does really well. Number 1, masterful gamification. Gamification not only makes language learning more fun, but it also increases consistency, which is one of the keys to learning a language. I've tried out hundreds of language learning apps over the years, and Duolingo has the best gamification features I've seen yet. It's very clear that Duolingo's developers know a thing or two about human psychology, behavior change, and creating habit loops, in which you have a cue, the routine, and then a reward. And this keeps your habits spinning around and round and keeping you coming back. From learning streaks to leaderboards, to learner leagues, to achievement badges, to daily study targets, to learning paths, to the use of sound and color, every detail is designed to keep you coming back for more. Duolingo streaks are particularly powerful, and I know many people who stay up late when they're exhausted to make sure they don't break their Duolingo streak. Though part of me is less than excited about the prospect of an app being intentionally designed to override my willpower, hijack my day, and maximize my time in their ecosystem. Another part of me is aware that such seemingly evil means can be used toward a positive end, like learning a language. I suppose it's better we spend our time in an addictive gamified app like Duolingo than an addictive app like Instagram. Incidentally, I actually quit Duolingo once as part of a digital detox, as recommended in Cal Newport's book, Digital Minimalism. At the time, I was worried that Duolingo had become worryingly addictive for me, and that my language learning time would be better spent elsewhere. Though I thought the gamification features were cute, I assured myself I didn't need them to continue putting in time each day. I am an experienced language learner, after all. I was wrong. About a week into the detox, I realized I had done 0 language study that week. Absolutely 0. Zilch. Nada. After the detox, I started using the app again, and I'm now on a 342-day streak as of the day recording this video. The streak alone is not what matters. What matters is that when I started using Duolingo again, I also started doing lots of other activities that truly matter and truly help me both maintain and learn languages. I now see Duolingo as an anchor habit that helps me stay motivated and consistent, and most importantly, triggers the other activities that really matter, such as meeting regularly with a tutor, listening to target language podcasts, watching foreign films on Netflix, reading articles in Wikipedia in my target languages, and so on. So if you need a little extra dopamine boost to keep you consistent, I highly recommend leveraging the motivational fuel provided by Duolingo's gamification features. Number 2, Duolingo lets you leverage the power of reverse learning. If you're a beginner, Duolingo's standard X for English speakers courses are a good place to start. For example, Japanese for English speakers or Chinese for English speakers. But once you have a bit of experience under your belt, I highly recommend checking out Duolingo's English for X speakers courses, such as English for Japanese speakers or English for Chinese speakers. Perhaps it's my background in linguistics and English teaching, but I find this reverse learning approach to be far more interesting. I'm probably just a language nerd, but there's something extremely satisfying about reading English grammar explanations in Japanese and Chinese. This approach provides a powerful form of immersion and exposes you to lots of words and phrases you might not otherwise ever hear or read. And best of all, it feels a bit cheeky, like you've snuck into the wrong class. And number 3, Duolingo lets you learn through stories. Learning languages through stories is hands down one of the most fun and effective ways to learn new words, phrases, and structures in context. And that, in fact, is one of the reasons why I historically struggled with Duolingo's standard skill tree. Each lesson was comprised of piecemeal sentences devoid of any overarching narrative or meaningful sequencing. But with the release of Duolingo stories, they've helped address this limitation. To find the stories, look for lessons marked with an open book icon in the learning path. Each story includes a bit of drama or comedy to keep things interesting, and enough context clues to help you understand what's going on, even if you're a complete beginner. And speaking of stories, Duolingo also provides free narrative-based podcasts for Spanish and for French. Each episode features real-life stories and is presented half in English to create context and half in the target language to help you improve your listening skills. The production quality and narrative depth are quite impressive and are on par with popular shows like This American Life. And best of all, they have complete transcripts for the episodes online, which you can then import into a tool like Link, L-I-N-G-Q, to study them and save vocabulary. So those are 3 things that I love about Duolingo. If you do decide to use the app, here are some tips on how to get the most out of it. Here are 6 quick tips to get the most out of Duolingo. Number 1, listen to sentences first before you read them. This helps prioritize the development of listening skills and shows you what you actually understand with your ears versus what you can parse out word by word with your eyes. The latter is far easier, but the former is the skill that you really need to practice most. I will often close my eyes or even look away from the screen so I'm not tempted to peek. Number 2, do the following before you tap check on a given exercise. Tap the speaker icon to hear the sentence aloud once more. This provides a little bit of useful repetition and a bit more listening practice before you move on. Say the sentence aloud at least once to practice your pronunciation and mimic the speaker's intonation and pacing. Double check your answer for mistakes. It's very easy to miss something obvious when you're trying to go too fast. Number 3, compete in language leagues. You can access the leaderboard by clicking the shield icon at the bottom of the app. There you can see your current league and where you stand in that week's rankings. At the end of the week, the top 5 are promoted to the next league up, and the bottom 7 are demoted to the next league down. For many learners, this bit of competition provides a little bit of extra motivation to put in time each day. Number 4, use the browser version of Duolingo on your computer. Although I love the Duolingo mobile app, I found that you can work through lessons more quickly using the online browser-based version of the app. On your computer, you can use your keyboard to type out answers, and you can use keyboard shortcuts to select answers instead of having to click on each one. You can also hit the enter key on your keyboard to check your answer and then proceed to the next activity. Most importantly, you can turn on keyboard typing for translation exercises instead of using the default drag and drop option. This is more difficult, yes, but it's far more effective for building fluency and active ability. Number 5, beware of incorrect pronunciations for some Japanese characters and words. Unfortunately, the audio on Duolingo is sometimes wrong for some Japanese kanji. For example, when used on its own, this character, which means body, should be pronounced karada. But I noticed in a lot of the exercises in Duolingo that it's mispronounced as type, which is how it's pronounced in kanji compounds, not when on its own. To be fair, such problems are common in all text-to-speech systems, but it's frustrating how many of these pop up in Duolingo, despite the size of their company and how many people are working on the app. If you encounter any of these mispronunciations and you're feeling altruistic, you can tap on the flag icon and select the audio does not sound correct. And number 6, adjust the text setting if you're learning Japanese or Chinese. In Duolingo's Japanese and Chinese courses, you have the option to turn on or off pronunciation guides, including Romaji or Pinyin, depending on your level. I suggest turning these off as soon as possible. Simply tap the gear icon in the upper left of a lesson to toggle settings on or off as desired. You can also go to Settings, Account, Preferences to adjust these settings. So there you have it. Duolingo is far from perfect, and it certainly won't get you fluent on its own. But no language learning app is perfect, and no single app will get you fluent. That doesn't mean it shouldn't be part of your language learning toolbox. Personally, I find that Duolingo can act as a great anchor habit and a springboard for further language learning. Just make sure that Duolingo and other language learning apps don't replace the direct practice that will actually get you fluent. Tapping away in Duolingo will never take the place of consuming authentic content and communicating with real people. But if used right, it can help you build up the vocabulary and confidence you need for such direct practice. Just like a healthy breakfast, the key is balance. Having a bowl of sugary cereal is not going to kill you, but if that's all you eat, it just might.